I, 34F, have been the financial backbone of my family for 15 plus years. Today they ambushed me for more money and I finally told them the truth about my inheritance. Now I'm being called selfish. My name is Claire and I'm 34 years old. I've always been the responsible one in my family. Even as a child, I was the one who made sure homework was done, lunches were packed, and everyone got to school on time. My younger sister Ellie was the fun one, the pretty one, the one who could charm her way out of anything with a smile. My parents adored her, and I understood why. She had this light about her, this way of making everyone feel special. I never resented being the responsible one because it felt natural, like I was born to take care of others. But I never imagined how far it would go, or how much it would eventually cost me. 15 years ago, when I was just 19, my grandmother passed away. We were close, closer than I was with my parents in many ways. Grandma Ruth saw something in me that my parents never did. While they were busy applauding Ellie's every move, Grandma Ruth would sit with me on her porch swing, ask about my dreams, and tell me I was going to do great things someday. When she died, I was devastated. What I didn't expect was that she would leave her modest savings to me. It wasn't a fortune by any means, but it was enough to pay for college and maybe have a little left over to start my life. My parents were surprised. They'd assumed Grandma Ruth's money would be split evenly between Ellie and me. But her will was specific. The money was for me, with a letter explaining that she believed in my future and wanted to make sure I had the chance to build it. The day after the will reading, my father lost his job. It wasn't his fault, the company was downsizing, and he was one of dozens let go that day. My mother worked part-time as a school secretary, but her income wasn't enough to support our family. I remember sitting at our kitchen table, watching my father's hands shake as he tried to calculate how long their savings would last. My mother was quietly crying, and Ellie looked scared in a way I'd never seen before. That's when I made the decision that would shape the next 15 years of my life. I offered to help. Just temporarily, I thought. Just until Dad found a new job. I would use some of Grandma Ruth's money to help with the mortgage payment that month. Dad found a new job 3 months later, but it paid significantly less than his previous position. By then, I'd already paid 3 months of mortgage payments, the electric bill when it was about to be shut off, and Ellie's car insurance when it lapsed. It became a pattern. Every time there was a financial emergency, and there always seemed to be one, I was the safety net. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it was what family did for each other. I told myself Grandma Ruth would have wanted me to help. But deep down, I think I always knew I was lying to myself. I still managed to go to college, working part-time jobs to supplement what was left of my inheritance after helping my family. I graduated with honors and got a decent job at a marketing firm. My plan was to start saving for my own future, to finally use my money for myself. But then Ellie decided she wanted to go to college too. My parents couldn't contribute anything, and Ellie had never been good at saving money. The unspoken expectation hung in the air at every family dinner. I would help Ellie like I'd helped them. And I did. I paid for her tuition, her books, her apartment. I told myself it was an investment in her future, that once she graduated and got a good job, things would change. Ellie graduated 5 years ago, but things didn't change. She got a job at a nonprofit that she loved, but the salary was minimal. She moved back home to save money, but somehow never managed to save enough to move out. My parents, now in their 60s, started having health problems. Dad's diabetes required expensive medication that his insurance didn't fully cover. Mom needed physical therapy after a fall that, again, wasn't fully covered by insurance. And each time, the solution was the same: Claire will help. Claire always helps. I've calculated it recently. Over the past 15 years, I've given my family over $175,000. That's money that could have gone toward a house of my own, instead of the one-bedroom apartment I still rent. That's money that could have been invested, could have grown, could have secured my own future. Instead, it went to keeping my family afloat while they made choices I wouldn't have made, spent money I wouldn't have spent, and lived lives I couldn't afford to live myself. Don't get me wrong, I love my family. But somewhere along the way, I became less of a daughter and sister and more of an ATM. The requests became expectations. The gratitude became entitlement. And I became resentful, though I tried hard not to show it. I kept telling myself that next month would be different, next year things would change. But they never did. And the more I gave, the more they seemed to need. 2 years ago, I met James. He was kind, funny, and understood my dedication to my family in a way no one else ever had. His own parents had struggled financially when he was younger, and he'd worked hard to help them while building his own life. But he also had boundaries. He'd learned to say no when necessary, to prioritize his own well-being. It was something I'd never been able to do. When James and I moved in together last year, I thought things might finally change. I was spending more on rent for our shared apartment, and I made it clear to my family that I needed to cut back on my financial support. They seemed to understand, at first. But then Ellie's car broke down, and Dad needed a new medication, and Mom wanted to visit her sister in Florida. Each request came with an explanation of why it couldn't wait, why it was essential, why I was the only one who could help. And each time, I gave in. James noticed, of course. He never criticized me directly, but I could see the concern in his eyes, hear the caution in his voice when he'd ask if I was sure I could afford to help this time. Last month, James proposed. It was perfect, a quiet evening at home, his grandmother's ring, a promise of a future together. I said yes immediately. I was happier than I'd been in years, excited about building a life with someone who saw me for me, not for what I could provide. But my happiness was short-lived. When I told my family about the engagement, their first question wasn't about the proposal, or the ring, or our plans. It was about money. "Does this mean you won't be able to help us anymore?" My mother asked, her voice careful, her eyes not quite meeting mine. I assured them nothing would change immediately, that James and I hadn't even set a date yet. But inside, something broke. Something that had been cracking for 15 years finally shattered. I realized in that moment that my engagement, one of the happiest moments of my life, was viewed by my family primarily as a potential threat to their financial security. Not as a celebration of love, not as a new chapter in my life, but as a possible end to the money they'd come to depend on. I didn't say anything then. I smiled and changed the subject and pretended everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. I started logging every request for money, every time they called or texted or emailed with an emergency that only I could solve. I created a spreadsheet detailing every dollar I'd given them over the years. I talked to James about boundaries, about the future, about what we both wanted and what we could reasonably afford. And I made a decision. The next time they asked, I would say no. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Yesterday, my parents and Ellie invited James and me over for dinner. They said they wanted to celebrate our engagement properly, to welcome James to the family. I was touched, hopeful that maybe things were changing. James and I brought a nice bottle of wine and a homemade dessert. The evening started well enough, pleasant conversation, reminiscing about family stories, getting to know each other better. It felt normal, healthy even. After dinner, as we moved to the living room for coffee, my father cleared his throat. I recognized that sound, it always preceded a difficult conversation. "Claire, honey, we wanted to talk to you about something important," he said, his voice serious but gentle. "Your mother and I have been thinking about the future." My stomach tightened. I knew what was coming before he said another word. "We're getting older, and our medical expenses aren't going to decrease," Dad continued. "And with Ellie still trying to find her footing financially, we're concerned about how we'll manage long term." Mom jumped in, her voice slightly higher than usual. "We thought, with you and James combining your incomes, you might be in an even better position to help us. Maybe set up a monthly arrangement instead of these one-off emergencies. Something more predictable for everyone." I felt James stiffen beside me, but he remained silent. This was my battle to fight. Ellie leaned forward, her eyes wide and imploring the way they always were when she wanted something. "And Claire, since you're making more than ever at your job, I was hoping you might be able to help me with a down payment for a condo. The one I've been looking at is perfect, and the market is so competitive right now." I looked around the room at my family. My father with his earnest expression, my mother with her hopeful smile, Ellie with her expectant eyes. They truly didn't see anything wrong with what they were asking. They genuinely believed they were entitled to my money, to my future, to the life I'd worked so hard to build. I took a deep breath. "No," I said simply. The silence was immediate and heavy. My mother's smile froze. My father's eyebrows rose in surprise. Ellie's mouth opened slightly, as if she couldn't believe what she'd heard. What do you mean, no? Ellie was the first to recover, her voice tinged with indignation. I mean no, I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. I've been supporting this family financially for 15 years. Every emergency, every shortfall, every unexpected expense, I've covered it. Over $175,000 of my money has gone to keeping this family afloat. Money that I could have used to buy a house, to invest in my future, to build the life I want. And I've done it willingly, because I love you. But it stops now. My father's face darkened. I don't think you understand the situation, Claire. We're talking about real needs here, not luxuries. I understand completely, I replied. But I also understand that I've been enabling a situation that isn't sustainable. For any of us. You've come to see me as a source of income rather than a daughter. And that's not healthy for anyone. My mother's eyes filled with tears. How can you say that? We love you. We've always loved you. I know you love me, Mom. But loving someone means wanting what's best for them, not just what they can provide for you. When was the last time you asked about my dreams, my goals? When was the last time you showed interest in my life that wasn't connected to how it might benefit you financially? Ellie snorted, a sound of disbelief and dismissal. Oh please, like you've had it so hard. Grandma Ruth left you all that money, and you've had a good job for years. Meanwhile, I'm trying to make a difference in the world with a nonprofit salary. I can't help it if I need a little extra support. Something in me snapped at her words. 15 years of suppressed frustration and resentment bubbled to the surface. Grandma Ruth left me that money because she believed in me, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. She wanted me to use it to build a future, not to bankroll this family indefinitely. And I've had a good job because I worked hard for it, saved carefully, and made sacrifices. Sacrifices that none of you have been willing to make. I turned to my parents. Dad, you've been talking about downsizing for years, but you won't because you don't want to leave the house I grew up in. Mom, you refused to increase your hours at work even when they offered, because you said you deserved work-life balance. And Ellie, I turned back to my sister, you chose a low-paying job, which is admirable, but then you make financial decisions as if you have my salary instead of yours. I could see the shock and hurt on their faces, but I couldn't stop now. 15 years of silence was pouring out of me like a dam breaking. Do you know what Grandma Ruth's money was supposed to be for? My education, yes. But also a down payment on a house. A nest egg for my future. A chance to start my adult life without debt. Instead, it was gone within 3 years of her death, almost entirely to this family. And I've been playing catch-up ever since, trying to rebuild what I lost while still being your safety net. My father's face had gone from dark to pale. We had no idea, he said quietly. You never said anything. Would it have mattered if I had? I asked. Would you have turned down the money? Would you have found another way? Or would you have made me feel guilty for not wanting to help my family? The silence that followed answered my question more clearly than words could have. I'm getting married, I continued, my voice softening slightly. James and I are starting our own family. We want to buy a house, have children, build a life together. And I can't do that if I'm still financially responsible for all of you. My mother wiped at her tears. So you're just cutting us off? After all these years? James spoke for the first time, his voice calm but firm. That's not what Claire is saying. She's saying the dynamic needs to change. There's a difference between helping family through a genuine emergency and being treated like a perpetual source of funding. This isn't really your business, Ellie snapped at him. This is a family matter. He is family, I said sharply. Or he will be soon. And unlike the rest of you, he actually sees me as a person, not a bank account. My father's face hardened. That's enough, Claire. You've made your point. If you don't want to help your family anymore, fine. But don't sit there and act like you're some kind of victim. We've always been there for you emotionally. I laughed, a short, bitter sound that surprised even me. Have you? When Grandma Ruth died, you were more concerned about her will than my grief. When I graduated college, none of you came to the ceremony because Ellie had a dance recital the same day. When I got promoted last year, the first thing you asked was if it meant a raise. You haven't been there for me emotionally. You've been there for what I can provide. The room fell silent again. My words hung in the air, harsh but true. I'm not cutting you off entirely, I said after a moment, my voice steadier. I will still help with true emergencies. If someone is sick, if there's a genuine crisis, I'll be there. But the regular subsidies, the constant expectations, the manipulation, that's over. I need to prioritize my future with James, and our potential children, the same way you've prioritized your needs over mine for years. Ellie's face crumpled into a look I recognized all too well, the prelude to tears that always got her what she wanted. But Claire, what about my condo? I can't afford it without you. I've already started the application process. I'll lose my deposit. Then you'll have to find a different condo, I said firmly. One you can actually afford. Or keep renting until you've saved enough. That's what most people do, Ellie. They live within their means. You're being cruel, my mother said, her voice trembling. After everything we've done for you. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. And honest, for the first time in 15 years. I love you all, but I can't keep doing this. It's destroying me, and it's not helping any of you in the long run. James stood up beside me, placing a supportive hand on my back. I think it's time for us to go. This has been an emotional conversation for everyone, and some space might be good right now. My father remained seated, his eyes fixed on the floor. My mother was openly crying now. Ellie was staring at me with a mixture of anger and disbelief. I hope someday you'll understand, I said softly as we moved toward the door. This isn't about not loving you. It's about finally loving myself enough to set boundaries. We left without another word. The drive home was quiet, but not uncomfortable. James held my hand when he could, squeezing it reassuringly at stoplights. You did the right thing, he said as we entered our apartment. It was long overdue. I nodded, feeling a strange mixture of guilt, relief, and grief. I know. But it doesn't make it any easier. That was yesterday. Today, the texts and calls started early. My mother sent a long message about how disappointed she was, how she never thought I could be so selfish. My father called to tell me in a tight voice that I needed to reconsider, that family always comes first. Ellie left a voicemail sobbing about how her dream home would slip away because of me. But the final straw, the one that confirmed I'd made the right decision, came this afternoon. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, called. We've never been particularly close, but she's always been kind to me. Today, though, she wasn't calling to be kind. Claire, she said, her voice cool and disappointed, I just got off the phone with your mother. She's devastated. I can't believe you would turn your back on your family like this after all they've done for you. I sighed. Aunt Linda, with all due respect, you don't know the full story. I know enough, she replied. I know your grandmother left you a small fortune, and instead of sharing it with your family, you've been holding it over their heads for years. I froze. What did you just say? Don't play innocent. Your mother told me everything. How Ruth left you nearly $500,000, how you've been doling it out in small amounts to control your family, and now that you're getting married, you're cutting them off completely. My head spun. $500,000? Control? Is that what my mother truly believed? Or was it the story she'd crafted to make herself the victim? Aunt Linda, Grandma Ruth left me $65,000. Not $500,000. And it was gone within 3 years because I used it to help my family when Dad lost his job. I've been supporting them with my own salary ever since. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. That can't be right. Your mother said. My mother is lying to you, I said flatly. Either because she's lying to herself about how much money there actually was, or because she's trying to paint me as the villain in this story. But you can ask James. You can ask my best friend Maria, who watched me struggle through college working 2 jobs because most of my inheritance was already gone. You can ask anyone who actually knows the truth. Another silence. Then, I don't know what to believe. Believe the truth, I replied. The truth is I've given my family over $175,000 of my own money over the past 15 years. The truth is they invited James and me over last night to ask for more, a monthly stipend from now on, plus a down payment for Ellie's condo. The truth is I finally said no, and now they're punishing me for it. I could hear Aunt Linda's breathing on the other end of the line. I need to think about this, she finally said. If what you're saying is true. It is, I interrupted. Every word. Then I owe you an apology. And your mother has some explaining to do. After we hung up, I sat on my couch, staring at the wall. My mother had lied about the inheritance. She'd made me out to be some wealthy, miserly daughter hoarding a fortune while her family struggled. The narrative she'd created was so far from reality it was almost laughable. Except I wasn't laughing. I was furious. I picked up my phone and opened my family group chat. For a moment, I considered a long, detailed message explaining exactly how wrong they were, how hurt I was, how their actions had confirmed every reason I had for stepping back, but in the end, I opted for simplicity. I just spoke with Aunt Linda. Mom, I can't believe you lied about Grandma Ruth's inheritance. There was never $500,000. It was $65,000, and most of it went to this family years ago. I won't be responding to any more messages about money. I need time and space to process this betrayal. I turned my phone off after sending it. I didn't need to see their responses, their excuses, their attempts to rewrite history again. James came home from work to find me cooking dinner, music playing, a different energy in our home than he'd felt in months. You seem lighter, he observed, kissing my cheek. I am, I replied, and I meant it. I finally see everything clearly. This isn't just about money. It never was. It's about respect and honesty, and being seen for who I am, not what I can provide. And what are you going to do now? He asked, his eyes full of love and support. I smiled, a real smile that felt foreign on my face after so long. I'm going to plan our wedding. I'm going to save for our future. I'm going to live my life without guilt or obligation weighing me down. And your family? I sighed, but it wasn't the heavy sigh of resignation I'd grown used to. It was thoughtful, resolute. They'll either accept the new boundaries and we'll rebuild our relationship on healthier terms, or they won't, and I'll have to accept that too. But either way, I'm done sacrificing my future for people who can't even be honest about the past. James nodded, pulling me into a hug. I'm proud of you, he whispered against my hair. And Grandma Ruth would be too. I felt tears prick my eyes at the mention of my grandmother. For the first time in 15 years, I felt like I was honoring her gift the way she intended, by investing in myself, my dreams, my future. Not by being an endless resource for a family that saw me as a means to an end rather than a person with my own needs and desires. Tonight, I'll sleep better than I have in years. Tomorrow, I'll start researching financial advisors to help me plan for my future with James. Next week, we'll look at houses in our price range, not the dream home my family might expect me to provide, but a starter home that we can afford on our own. And someday, maybe my family will understand that loving someone means wanting them to thrive, not merely to provide. That true family support goes both ways. That my worth isn't measured in dollars given or problems solved. But even if they never understand, I do now. And that's enough. For the first time in 15 years, I'm putting myself first. And it feels right. It feels necessary. It feels long overdue. My name is Claire, I'm 34 years old, and today is the first day of the rest of my life.